Hey guys, today we are in Joaquin Miller Park in Oakland and we're on another little hike and we saw this really cool log with a bunch of different kinds of funguses on them. Again, we've got those polypore shelf fungi that look like the turkey tail but they're not. And then it's all over this log and some bryophytes have started to grow on top of the fungus, which I think is super funny. And then there's those little white guys there and over there, which is a different kind of shelf fungi. Look at them, all on the side. Also just found a banana slug. So it doesn't have like the bright yellow with the brown spots like other banana slugs do, but look at him. So he's probably as long as my finger. We've just come across a little stand of Manzanita. And Manzanita is that whole area in the butterfly garden with all the red bark that sometimes peels off. And a couple things about Manzanita. Manzanita doesn't like to be touched. It doesn't like to be really cut down or messed with. So sometimes Manzanita, maybe it's the way they talk to each other and their root system. I'm not exactly sure. But if I were to peel the bark off this guy, he might just die. Or he might then start talking to his friends, his other Manzanita friends, and tell them that something is attacking them. Or if I were to cut a branch here, it might then affect the whole tree. So it's really important to be gentle with our Manzanita in the garden. Now this Manzanita looks really healthy and it's got lots of good lichens on or near it. It's a sign of a healthy ecosystem. Here's a cool big rock with lots of bryophytes on him. But then also, I'm not exactly sure, this might be a lichen. And then over here, this. Now I'm thinking this is a lichen. Like there's its little root-like structures, its little rhizoids under there, and it looks like maybe it's like a foliose lichen, which is one that kind of look like leaves. At first, when I saw this, I thought it was leaves, but then I looked closer, and it's definitely its own being. And look under there, so cool. So I think this is a fruticose or a foliose, but probably a foliose lichen. And of course there's all these big ferns. If you remember, ferns don't reproduce with seeds, they reproduce with spores that generally hang out on the underside of their leaves. Now it's not sporing time, it's not time for the ferns to be reproducing, so you won't see any on the underside of their leaves right now, but generally they look like big dots all lining the back, and they're black or sometimes orange or red. Bunch of ferns. There's little baby ferns right there. I think this is a slime mold, which is in, I guess maybe not technically a fungus, and it's got yellow flying off, but they can move around and they can kind of find where they're going, or it's mycelium. I'm thinking it's a slime mold. So those were slime molds, and slime molds are, for a very long time, were considered fungi, but they're nothing like fungi. In fact, they're closer to amoebas. And the really cool thing about slime molds is that they're kind of really smart. So there was a whole study on slime molds where they basically made this maze of some sort, on a table, and they put food of some sort on one end and food at the front. And basically they being the scientists that did this, I don't know their names, I should probably find that out, but they inoculated the front with this slime mold spores. Maybe they reproduced with spores. Again, I don't know much about slime molds, but they put the slime molds at the beginning of this maze. And basically, every single time they did this, the slime molds found the quickest way to the end.
They also almost seemed like they were aware of the dead ends in the maze. They were aware of any danger that might be in the maze. It was super interesting that they were so efficiently able to get through this maze. And it made scientists wonder, wait a minute, we think of humans as being the most intelligent creatures, but there are these things that don't have brains, slime molds, and yet are so, visibly intelligent. Super, super cool day for science when scientists such and such et al. Discovered this.
I'm sitting on the forest floor, and I wanted to talk to you guys about mulch. So in our garden, we always put down wood chips and leaves and straw to act as mulch. And basically we want to be mimicking or copying the forest floor. And the forest floor is just covered in a really thick layer of mulch. So you can see there's leaves, there's pieces of wood, there's pieces of redwood, sticks. And I know that looks like soil there, but it's not. You kind of gotta really dig down. Still haven't hit soil yet. So I'm already about an inch down, and I haven't even hit the soil. And basically, what all of this does is it protects the forest floor. You can see how it looks, the color is different. Look how light it is there versus where I dug there and where I dug here. It's very dark and it's very wet down here. So the mulch is going to be holding in the water, keeping it nice and moist for funguses, for bryophytes, for animals, for plants to grow. It's going to be keeping it warm. And as all this breaks down, it provides nutrients to all the roots of these guys. We're in the soil. A bunch of little yellowish, orangish mushrooms. They're really tiny, like smaller than the size of a dime. Really close to the floor. Also found this, and this one here. And they are growing on something else. Basically, they're a kind of puff fungus. I'm sure they have a better name, but basically they look like these little puff balls. And in order to get their spores, remember funguses don't reproduce with seeds, they reproduce with spores. They'll shoot the spores out of this little hole and make it look like a big puff. Cool, huh? This massive piece of dried sap. That's all sap. Isn't that gorgeous? So from this tree, looks like maybe it came from up there and fell in this area. And basically sap is kind of like a tree's blood. It helps nutrients and water move through the tree. And when it comes out, so when it's inside the tree, it's called resin, really. When it comes out, it's called sap, and then it hardens and gets really, really, really tough. This massive chunk of it. Cool. So that will happen, the tree will let that kind of thing out when insects or maybe birds or funguses are tearing into its sides, into the bark, and it's the way that the tree reacts, kind of like bleeding. We found another banana slug, but it's on some moldy poop. Probably someone didn't pick up their dog poop and now he gets lunch.